Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Eternal Spring. I'm Paul Thurrott, and I am here in Mexico City, as always, with my wife, Stephanie. Hello.
Hello, everybody.
So, we've been coming to Mexico for about 3 years, and we've used every form of payment terminal imaginable in restaurants and bars, especially. We've probably used every ATM machine network that there is here to get cash. And in each case, those experiences have been pretty consistent between trips until this time, interestingly. Something has changed, and it's a big enough change that we figured it warranted a video.
hmm Right. Um, yeah, so here in Mexico, when it's time to pay your bill, the waiter or bartender or another employee will bring over a paper bill for you. You can pay that with cash, or you can tell them that you would like to pay with a credit card or with your phone if you pay with Apple Pay or Google Pay, something like that.
Which is embarrassing because we only on this trip found out you could do that here, which is kind of stupid. It's obvious in retrospect, but we almost always pay with a card to date, but a phone would be the same thing. And we try to short circuit this kind of two-step process by telling them up front that we want to use a tarjeta card to pay when we ask for the bill.
hmm that almost never works.
Hmm.
They when you ask for the bill, even if you say you want to pay con tarjeta, they will bring you the paper bill and then they will go away. And they always hear that you always pay with a terminal at your table, so they bring a little terminal over on a second trip after you have your bill. Then they look, they look at the paper bill, they enter the price into the terminal. They ask you if you would like to leave a tip. Two ways you can tip typically with the credit card or the phone. Sometimes the terminal will have preset percentages like 5%, 10%, 15%. And then sometimes you have to enter the amount. So either you or the person who is taking the payment will have to do some math to figure out how much that amount is.
That's always a fun moment.
Yeah.
We usually try to tip 20% because we're American and we're here and we want to help out as much as possible in a place where things cost so little compared to what we pay for things back home. But these machines are often hard coded to go up to only 15%. And rather than go through that whole thing, we try to expedite. Well, this, 15% is still a good tip here, obviously. But so far, I would say up until this trip, this process, as we've described it, is unchanged. In fact, actually, this part of it is unchanged, right? But it's the next part, the next thing that happens that's been new to this trip, and it's happened almost everywhere.
Almost everywhere. Well, certainly restaurants, bars, any place that you get food, it happens all the time. Not necessarily in stores, but pretty much any type of food experience, this is what happens.
Right.
After you agree on the tip, if you're paying with a US credit card or account, the terminal will prompt the server to choose whether you should pay in US dollars or Mexican pesos. Depending on the server, they might not even mention this to you. They might just choose for you. In one case, we have a friend here who owns a restaurant, and he always chooses pesos for his customers because he knows that that's the better exchange rate, which is advice that we've known and we've given for quite some time. If you're in another country, you should always choose the local currency and not let the bank or the card processor do the conversion, because you'll almost always pay a higher rate when that happens.
Yeah, the experience has varied from place to place. Some servers will actually show you the screen and as if to ask you to pick which one you want. It's actually kind of surprising how often this happens now. This almost never happened on previous trips. It seems to have spread across the different terminal, systems they have. And we can only guess, but it seems like some group of banks or processing centers or whatever realized that Roma Norte or maybe all of Mexico City was suddenly full of expats, and that many of them would be unsophisticated enough when it comes to this kind of thing to choose USD, in our case, United States dollars, because that's their currency and it feels like maybe that's the right choice, right? You're from the United States, you must want to choose that. That's
right.
not the right choice.
Yeah. So when you look at the screen, it will tell you the amount in pesos and the amount in dollars. And if you look very closely, there's some small print and it says margen de tipo de cambio es 5%, which means that the system is adding a 5% surcharge on top of the actual exchange rate that you're paying. So obviously exchange rates vary anyway. But in one example, we had lunch at Caldos Luis, which is a little local soup shop. That's one of our favorite places to go for lunch. It's not very expensive there. So the total cost of our meal with the tip was 230 pesos, which is $13.53. However, if we had picked to pay in US dollars, the cost would have been $14.22, which is about 5% higher.
Yeah, we had to do a lot of math for this episode, so I'll try to present that in a way that makes sense. It's hard to talk through, but this issue becomes more pronounced and more pronounced as you spend more and more money, of course, right? So rather than go through a bunch of different examples to get the idea, it's just more expensive. But we've also seen this type of thing on ATM machines as well. And again, for the first time, the morning we renewed our temporary residency, for example, we realized we didn't have enough money for the handler who was doing all that work for us. So we walked a couple of blocks away, went to a nearby bank and used the ATM machine. In this case, the message is slightly different, but the purpose is exactly the same. The point is the same.
Yeah. Yeah. The purpose is to get money from you. So in this case, the machine offers to let you convert the transaction into your local currency, your home country currency rather. So we were withdrawing 9,000 pesos. And if we had agreed to let the system convert that, we would have withdrawn over $615 from our US bank account, which works out to an exchange rate about 14.65 pesos to $1. But most of this trip, the exchange rate has been around 17 pesos to the dollar. So we chose not to convert and to take our bank's exchange rate rather than the machine's bank, whatever system that exchange rate is on.
You should always do anyway, right?
Which you should always do anyway.
Yeah.
So we, instead of withdrawing the $615, we withdrew $538.52. So that's a difference of almost $80. That's a lot of money. And the exchange rate we got on that was about 16.7 pesos to the dollar, which is, still a little bit lower than the 17% that kind of is typical now, but works out to be about 14% better than the rate we would have gotten from the conversion. The 5% you're paying extra in restaurants and that is bad enough. I mean, it doesn't sound like a lot when you're buying soup for lunch, but when it adds up for your whole trip, you're paying an extra 5%, and then 14% is just horrible.
Off the charts. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's some other weird things going on with the ATMs here as well. This is only semi-related, but since we're talking about it, we've seen a protect your withdrawal screen that would have caused, I think the time we took the picture, it would have been a charge of $2 more. And I don't know what the protection is exactly, but the main point here is just about exchange rates. And be alert anytime you pay with a card or I guess your phone at a terminal in a restaurant, a bar, or wherever, or when you withdraw money from an ATM machine. And in every case, always choose the local currency if you're given that option. Don't let them do the conversion.
Yep. And I would also say at the ATM, if you don't speak Spanish or understand Spanish very well, don't use this as an opportunity to practice. Just hit the button that says English. You're here in Mexico City, you get plenty of opportunities to use your Spanish, put it in English and go through it that way. Yeah, when, we made this video because we used to see these screens from time to time, but now they're just a lot more common, especially here in Roma Norte. And our friend who we mentioned that has the restaurant, he said this happens with all foreign currencies that he's seen come through, euros, Canadian dollars, Australian dollars. It's not just happening for US people. So if you come here, just choose the local currency, pay in pesos, and then you're not adding, 5 to 15% or more to the cost of your trip for no reason.
Right. I mean, it's always been the advice, but it's gotten worse. And so it's more important than ever because you can get those additional fees now. So it's not just 5% necessarily, it could be much higher. Yeah.
And when you really see the numbers, especially when we took out 9,000 pesos, we would have paid almost $80 for nothing.
For nothing. Yeah, exactly.
Mhm.
Well, I hope you found this useful. We were kind of surprised by this change, so we thought we'd throw this together. Thank you so much for watching. We will be back soon with another video.
Thank you. Bye.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to it. Oh boy. Hello, everybody, and welcome to. Oh my God. Professional speaker, ladies and gentlemen.